Okay guys, here's a video tutorial to help you with the homework in case you got stuck on anything. So the first one, we're graphing y equals sine of x on the interval from 0 to 2 pi. So I'm going to draw my graph, and I'm going to, on my y-axis, I'm going to put a 1 and a negative 1, and then on my x-axis, I'm going to put a 2 pi. And then I'm going to break up that interval into 4 equal chunks, so cut it in half and then cut those halves in half. And then remember that the sine of 0 is 0. That means your graph's going to go through the point 0, 0, so that's your starting point. And then the period of the graph is 2 pi, which means you're going to go through one complete cycle in a width of 2 pi. So we're going to start at 0, 0, and then we're going to go up to the top, back to the middle, down to the bottom, and back to the middle. And then we're going to connect those points with a smooth curve. Oops, I kind of missed. Let me try that again. And there's your graph. Okay, part B, we're going to do the same kind of thing with the cosine graph. So setting up the graph the same way, put your 2 pi there. On your y-axis, your 1 and your negative 1. And remember that the period of the cosine graph is also 2 pi. And so you're going to go through one complete cycle, break that into 4 chunks, cut it in half, and cut the halves in half. And then remember that the cosine of 0 is 1. So this graph is going to go through the point 0, 1. So I like to say we start at the top. So we put that point in place. So top, middle, bottom, middle, top. Connect those with a smooth curve. Make sure that you're making it curve at the ends too. You don't want it to look like it's just going straight. Okay, and then for part C, the tangent graph. Also we're graphing on the interval from 0 to 2 pi. You can put your 1s in place, but we're not really thinking about that very much on the y-axis for the tangent graph. And then remember that the period is pi, not 2 pi, but pi. So I'm going to go ahead and make a mark at pi, and then I'm going to split those sections in half as well, keeping in mind that pi over 2 is where we're going to have an asymptote. So the tangent of 0 is 0. That means the graph's going to go through the point 0, 0. Put that point in place. Then you're going to have a vertical asymptote at pi over 2, another 0 at pi, another vertical asymptote at 3 pi over 2, another 0 at 2 pi. So those alternate. And then when you're between two asymptotes, you get a curve that looks like this. But if you only have a partial curve to draw, then you can just draw whichever half you have leading up to the end point. Because if it says graph on a particular interval, it means start and stop. Don't go beyond it. Okay, number 2, graphing from negative 2 pi to positive 2 pi. So you can set up your graph to make space for that. Put a positive 2 pi, put a negative 2 pi. On your y-axis, put a 1, put a negative 1. Now between 0 and 2 pi, break that down into 4 equal chunks. Between 0 and negative 2 pi, break that down into 4 equal chunks. Sine of 0 is 0, so we're going to start at the middle at 0, 0, and go middle, top, middle, bottom, middle, and then you can do the same thing on the other side. So just doing it in reverse, middle, bottom, middle, top, middle. And then you can connect all those points with a nice smooth curve, not straight or pointy. And there you go. And then for the cosine graph, also looking at doing the interval from negative 2 pi to positive 2 pi. Oops, I skipped one. Negative 2 pi to positive 2 pi. So we can make our sketch, put in a 2 pi, put in a negative 2 pi. On the y-axis, a 1 and negative 1. Break down the chunks, 4 equal chunks for each of the 2 pi with intervals. And then the cosine of 0 is 1, so it's going to go through the point 0, 1. So I would say start at the top, and then go top, middle, bottom, middle, top. And you can reflect that over across on the other side. So we're at the top, middle, bottom, middle, top. And then connect those with a smooth curve. Nice and smooth and curvy, not pointy or straight. Remember that you're curving the ends as well. And lastly, for the graph of tangent from negative 2 pi to 2 pi, you're going to start by making your axes. putting in a 2 pi, putting in a negative 2 pi. I'm not as concerned about the y-axis. Break that down into chunks. That would be where pi is and negative pi. Break that down into chunks. I have a pi over 2 and negative pi over 2. And then remember that the tangent of 0 is 0. So you're going to have a point there at 0, 0. And you're going to have an asymptote at pi over 2 because the tangent of pi over 2 is undefined. And so you're just going to alternate zeros and asymptotes, zeros and asymptotes until you get to the endpoints. We're starting at negative 2 pi and we're ending at 2 pi. Zeros and asymptotes. Okay, between every two asymptotes you can draw a tangent curve. I always think that this middle one reminds me of y equals x cubed. It's not y equals x cubed, but it reminds me of it. And then at the end, we're going to have half of a curve on each end because we have to stop at the endpoints of the interval. There's your homework, guys. Let me know if you have any questions.